Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. Each session is designed to deliver a small and in-depth dose of cannabis education. I'm Candace Hawes, and I want to thank all of our viewers and our customers from the Pottery, from the Pharmacy Santa Ana, Santa Barbara, and Berkeley for joining us today. In this session, we're going to discuss the sustainability in the cannabis industry and talking with Troy Meadows from Legion of Bloom, which is leading the industry in sustainable cannabis practices. Like any agricultural industry, cannabis generates a fair amount of waste. And like other retail industry, cannabis also creates a lot of packaging materials that end up in landfills. But because of the uniquely strict regulations attached to cannabis, the industry ends up producing far more waste than comparative industries. Legion of Bloom is leading the industry in environmental consciousness and is an innovator in finding solutions to wasteful packaging and resource preserving practices. Troy Meadows is a co-founder, chief marketing officer, and chief sustainability officer at Legion of Blooms. He'll be discussing the many environmental initiatives the company is taking to protect its customers and the planet. Before we begin talking to Troy, I want to tell you just a little bit about our speaker. Troy Meadows is a Legion of Bloom marketer with more than 17 years of cannabis cultivation experience, working as a project manager for several farm operations under the collective model before the passage of Prop 64. He earned his degree in film and video production from Full Sail University, an institution that focuses on cutting-edge techniques, which helped him hone his storytelling skills. He has a keen passion for sustainability, which he uses to guide the Legion brand down the path to becoming a more responsible company every day. Troy thrives on being a world traveler, and he's lived in 5 countries, traveled through 26 other, and visited 47 out of the 50 United States. I'm really excited to have Troy with us today to talk more about sustainability in the cannabis industry and what Legion of Bloom is doing to be a leader in the field. Thank you so much for being with us today, Troy.
Candace, thanks for having me. This is it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. I'm such a big fan of Legion of Bloom, so I'm really excited to have you guys with us. I've been seeing all the amazing things that you guys have been doing, both in-house and just educating consumers as well, to help spread education about environmental consciousness in the cannabis industry. So can you start telling us how you actually ended up working in the cannabis space?
Yeah, sure. I mean, cannabis has been a big part of my life for a really long time. I as you mentioned, I grew up overseas. I grew up in Europe during my high school years. I was introduced to Holland's cannabis culture really early on, like talking about 16, 17, 18. I knew then that cannabis would play a big role in my life. And after moving to the US after high school, I eventually made my way out to California so I could pursue my passion for the plant in a state that's much more tolerant of the use of cannabis. As you mentioned in the introduction, I have a total of 17 years of cultivation experience, and I worked with many local Northern California dispensaries in the Prop 215 days, during the medical days, and then and now that we're in the recreational cannabis market, I'm part of Legion of Bloom. It's kind of been a natural progression for me as cannabis is. I mean, I'm on a 20+ year journey in the cannabis industry, to be honest with you. So
that's great. I love talking to the legacy guys that have been around since the very beginning. We remember what it was like when patients were even being prosecuted for cannabis. So it's amazing to have that experience and knowledge and be able to really keep that the essence of what we're doing today and make sure that we're always still thinking of customers, patients, and the planet.
Yeah, I love that you're using the word patients. I still use patients today, even though we're, 5 years into what is now a recreational adult use market. I think it's really important to kind of understand, where the plant comes from and whether you're, an individual recreational patient or like a longtime medical or individual recreational user, or a longtime medical patient. I mean, the plant has adds so much value to the individual. So
completely agree. And that's why I love working with Legion, because I know that you hold those values. So for those of our viewers who are not familiar with Legion of Bloom, can you tell us a little bit about your guys' company and about your guiding principles?
Yeah, sure. At Legion, we're founded by farmers, and in total, we have over 65 years of combined cultivation experience between the founders. Back in 2015, myself and 4 of my longtime friends were looking at the proposed Prop 64 regulations, and it was clear to us that it would be tough for small individual farmers to really make it in the brave new world that would be California's recreational market. So for lack of a better word, we kind of got the band back together. We joined forces. We joined together, pooling our resources and contacts to create something that that ultimately would be much bigger than any one of us could create on our own. And that's how the Legion was born. Today, that was back in 2015. So 6 years going on 7 years later, we're still a family owned and operated company based in Northern California. We manufacture and distribute out of our facility in Santa Rosa. And then we also have a cultivation facility in Oakland as well. We've been recipients of 10 industry awards, most notably first and third place for our Monarch cartridges and second place for our California Sauce live resin cartridges at the Emerald Cup in 2019. And then we also just took home a third place award with our Monarch cartridge in the 2020, the most recent Emerald Cup as well.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So what does it mean to be environmentally sustainable to Legion?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it really comes down to values. I think winning awards and being recognized by your peers in the industry is amazing, but I think it's our values that really set us apart. So, for us, eco-consciousness, sustainability, environmentalism, it's a big part of who we are at the Legion. We wanted to leave the world better than we found it. And we also believe that business can be used as a tool for good. So at the Legion, we use sustainability as a primary filter, and it acts as our first principle for decision making. I think that kind of starts it off. I think we also believe that sustainability is a journey and not a destination. So when you put sustainability first in your decision making funnel, you can move your organization to being a more responsible company every single day. So it's like we're not going to boil the ocean tonight or tomorrow. It's going to be consistency over time is going to equal creating, what we believe is a responsible company and give us the ability to add value back to the planet and add value back to cannabis culture, one day at a time. That goes back to some of our other values, which is like quality first. So we strive to make products that we would be proud to share with our friends and family. So we start with sustainability. We obviously, through some of the awards that we've won and just our passion for the plant, we believe that, we should always be putting out the highest quality products. And then I think the way we really add value back to the customer is by having a really mission-driven customer service approach. So we generally care about the experience that we put out to the customer. And as a member of the Legion community, we will go above and beyond to make sure our products are meeting your needs and that you are 100% satisfied as a customer. So whether it's, I don't think anyone has too many issues with dealing with the pharmacy, but we get a lot of customer service issues where like people don't have receipts or there are issues with products in general. Just reach out to us. You can message us on our website. You can contact us via email. We'll do whatever we can to make you happy, whether it's helping to coordinate something with a specific retailer or doing what we can on our end to make sure that you're satisfied with the experience that you have. And kind of coming back to the sustainability aspect, I think like I was saying before, it's really about consistency over time. That's how you really drive impact. That's how you lower your overall environmental footprint, and it's how you create a business that really gives back to the planet as much as it takes away. So
completely. So why do you think it's important for cannabis companies to think about the way that they use resources?
I mean, we only have one planet for starters. It's not an infinite hole of resources for us to use and pull from. Personally, I think that every company, not just cannabis companies, should be thinking about how they use resources. If you can cut back on what you use, reuse, recycle the things that you have, I mean, at the end of the day, you're lowering your bottom line. You're actually saving money for the organization. So a lot of people aren't thinking that way, but when you can minimize what you need to be successful, and you can think about like the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and kind of everything that you do. It may be a little bit of a bigger lift in the very beginning, but like I said, over time, you end up driving more value for your organization, and that's not just from the way the customer perceives the brand, but also or the company, but also in lowering the cost of doing business for the organization. So I think if you have to kind of think about it from a 2 or 3 pronged approach. You have to think about like, how do you engage with the customer and add value to the customer? How do you add value back to the brand? How do you create a business model that is sustainable, whether we're talking about like what you're actually doing for the planet or for the environment, but sustainable as far as like you're creating as much you're creating what the company needs to survive and build and grow and prosper. And I think it all comes down to that word sustainability. And you have to really think about it from all aspects and all angles of the company and the organization.
And I think customers really do care about companies that are environmentally conscious. I have a lot of people always complain about, look at all this packaging. This is, we don't necessarily need all this packaging. So I think they like the brands that prioritize, the planet over fancy looking packaging. That just adds money at the end of the day anyways, boxes within boxes within boxes. So, there's a minimum amount of packaging that you can have that will protect the product, meet the regulations, but is not overly wasteful. So I like that you guys, are always thinking about that. All right. So, what are some areas that Legion of Bloom noticed that changes could be made to be more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on some of it. I think minimizing waste in packaging is kind of low-hanging fruit, especially for the brand and for the consumer. Creating circular systems for specific waste items to turn single-use items into things that can be used for a lifetime. That's kind of the holy grail on sustainability, right? Like, take something that is meant to be used one time and let's turn it into something that can be used forever. We definitely think about that. I think, thinking about your supply chain as a circle as opposed to a line, I think that's like where you really start to pick out, these are the things that we can do quarter one or this month, quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and kind of really create a timeline for execution. And then when you're looking at the cultivation process and saying, how can you, I mentioned before the 3 R's, but how can you incorporate that reduce, reuse, recycle mentality into your facility design, and then your ultimately your cultivation process and SOPs.
Yeah, and we're going to get a little bit into each one of those more specifically. So like I said, customers are always complaining about the packaging that they can't get into, packaging that seems like way more than what they needed to. So can you talk to us about what Legion of Bloom did to mitigate the packaging waste?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the why is like, why remove single-use plastic from our packaging? And it's good to kind of start with like, why plastic is so bad. It's, since the invention of plastic in the 1950s, about 8 billion tons of plastic have been produced. That's roughly the weight of 8 billion of a billion elephants, right? So like, just to put that in perspective, only 9% of that plastic has been recycled. And it's something that not a lot of people know. Plastic, it's amazing for what it does. It was a groundbreaking invention back in the 1950s, but it's ubiquitous in the world we live in now in the 2020s. And out of 8 billion tons of plastic, only 9% of it has actually been recycled. 12% of it's been burned. And just think about what plastic smells like when you burn it. So all of that is going into the environment, and it's definitely not helping, for climate change and the world that we live in. And then that leaves 79% of that plastic still hanging out, and it's either sitting in landfills or it's actually in the environment. And, we've all seen the pictures of the island of plastic in the ocean, and we've seen kind of what our addiction to plastic has kind of done to us. And at the end of the day, all of it doesn't break down. It doesn't break down at all. It just breaks down into smaller pieces of itself. So, I've got this little stat here. According to a study done in 2018, the average person eats over 70,000 pieces of microplastic a year. So what we've really done to ourselves is creating a system where we're just poisoning ourselves over and over through an addiction to plastic. So, once we as an organization started to kind of uncover some of these facts, like back in 2018, 2019, we decided as an organization that we were going to minimize the use of single-use plastic. And for us, that was kind of goal number one. It was very paramount to what we wanted to do, and kind of was the start and the focus of us moving the company away from like single-use plastic, but really thinking about our resources in a really meaningful way. And that kind of brought us to start with some of the product lines that we focus on, the most. I think we sell a lot of vapes, and so that's kind of where we talked about. That's kind of where we started moving from there. And with our with our plastic-free vape packaging, I like to say it has all the icons, right? So if you look at the bottom of the packaging, you'll notice it's 100% recyclable. It's produced in the U.S., so we're not supporting China's economy. We're supporting the economy right here in the United States of America. It's FSC certified, so that's Forest Sustainability Council, and they're a great organization that are trying to use our forests as a resource, as a sustainable resource. And so all of the paper stock is certified, is FSC certified. So you know that it's sustainable material that's going into the packaging. And then the actual producer, our manufacturing producer, they manufacture in a facility that uses wind energy to power the operation. So there's renewable energy that's being used in the actual production. I mean, for us, it was like a win, you know, and I'll be completely honest with you, because we removed the plastic, we removed a piece, that piece costs money. And this packaging option actually cost our company less overall money, to put for our vape cartridges. So, it was a little bit, it's a win. Like, it's like very rare that you check all those boxes, and it cost us a little money up front because we had to rebuild the relationship. We didn't have the same terms with our business provider, but we've been able to kind of build that relationship up over time. And overall, like I said, it ended up being a net savings. Another great thing is that because it's made in the USA, we're not waiting 12 to 14 weeks plus for it to clear customs to come to us. So overall, it was really it really helped us as a company to really thrive, a year into the transition, and it took about a year to transition all of our products from what was already on the shelf, what was in distribution, and then ultimately into the new packaging. And, we made the commitment by 2020 to remove all single-use plastic from our product lines. And we were able to hit that goal. So I'm, very proud of that. And it definitely was a all hands on deck effort from everyone in the organization to kind of come together and decide, like, hey, this is something that we're going to do regardless of what it costs. So
that's great. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah. And then I think what's really cool and something we've been really trying to pioneer in 2020 is the use of plant-based packaging. So we have our plant-based pouches for our 5-star flower line. And these pouches are 100% made from plants. It's made from compostable materials. So what we're creating is a zero waste packaging solution for flower. This doesn't, no one else in the industry is doing this. No one else in the industry is thinking about this, and a couple of reasons why we chose pouches over glass. Bags require less energy to produce than glass. Bags are lighter with a smaller footprint than glass when shipping. So overall, it actually uses less fuel to ship. Bags are less weight, using less fuel in the shipping process. They create a smaller environmental footprint. Recycling glass, and a lot of people don't realize this, if you can reuse the glass without reforming it, it is one of the best methods for reusing resources. But as soon as you have to reform it and actually recycle it, glass is a high energy consuming process to do that. So you're actually using as much, if not more, energy to recycle the glass as you do to actually produce the glass. So that's where, if you're familiar with like Strauss milk and how you can kind of return your Strauss bottles and then you get a new bottle, like those kind of you reuse the exact same bottle process. Those are the things that make glass really, really, really amazing. But if you're not doing that, it's actually not that great for the environment. So
not saving very many resources at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And then most glass jars, especially for cannabis packaging, use plastic lids. We already had the conversation about plastic. Plastic just ends up in the landfill. I love that a lot of companies are moving toward, ocean plastic lids, but I think that's it's like taking a single-use item and turning it back into a single-use item. And ultimately that just ends up back in the landfill. It ends up back in the oceans. It ends up back in the environment. And the one thing about plastic a lot of people don't know is when you recycle plastic, you can recycle it about 3 or 4 times before you have to add virgin stock to reform and remold it. So you're always having to add fresh plastic into the mix if you're recycling plastic. So the whole plastic addiction, it's a real addiction, because you can't just create a circle with it. It's a real line. It's a line. You have to keep adding new plastic to make new plastic, even when you're recycling it. So it's definitely not the best environmental solution. And all these things kind of added up to us saying, like, well, we're just going to say no to plastic. It doesn't really matter what it costs. It's a solution for us. And that kind of goes back to some of the poll questions. Not sure if everyone, oh man, look, we got 100% on the right here with the poll questions. But, do you think that plastic like Mylar bags can be recycled? A lot, you will see recycling symbols on so much soft film plastic, but for the most part, plastic just you can't recycle soft film plastic. You can only recycle rigid plastic. And like I said, you can only recycle it a couple times before you have to, add more stock to the mix. So,
well, I thank you, and the planet thanks you for taking those steps to move away from plastic, because I completely agree. And, it gets into every part of our food system. It gets into the fish, into the water, to the fish that we eat. So we're ingesting small bits of plastic and, in lots of different ways, and it's not good for our health. So I love that you've taken these initiatives, both with the vape packaging and with the flower packaging. It's just really great.
Yeah. And I can say that if you put the energy in there, the solutions exist. I will say that a lot of these solutions did not exist back in 2016, 2017, 2018, when the regulations came into play, which is why everyone just went to plastic, because it was the easiest thing. There was child resistant certification, but now that we're 5 years deep into the industry, I think a lot of the packaging providers are seeing the amount of waste that they're producing, and they're really trying to create options to make a change. And we're really stoked with our packaging providers. All of it's made in the USA. And I think in general, I think more companies should be thinking about that. I know it's really tough to make those decisions and to make those moves, but at the end of the day, like I said before, we only have one planet. So
I completely agree. So let's talk about cultivation. So besides implementing these processes to save the resources with plastic, with packaging, you also have cultivation practices that you guys undertake to save resources. Can you talk about some of those too?
Yeah, we have at Legion Cultivation, we like to say we're trying to pioneer sustainable indoor flower. So we've got 30,000 square feet of flowering canopy. That's about 19 flowering bays. We use a single strain per room, and when we're just finishing up our construction. So we're about, I think we've got, if I remember correctly, there's 14 rooms online. So we've got like another 5 rooms that'll come online in the next couple of months. But ultimately, we're harvesting basically a room a week, which is really cool. But for us, our cultivation facility is at the cornerstone of our sustainable cultivation practices. We use LED lighting technology, so uses less energy than traditional HPS fixtures, and we found that we actually get better yields and better terpene percentages than what we're used to getting with traditional incandescent fixtures, which is really cool. When completely built out, we'll use 100% renewable energy to power the operation. And that's through a program that we're working with in Oakland, California. So, it's just all about doing the right thing. It's all California produced renewable energy. And then, we have a very efficient water catchment process that we have implemented into the build for our cultivation. So we capture, filter, and reuse 80% of our water. So we only end up needing about 20% of the water that we need to I guess power or to water the plants, to feed the plants. We purchase 20% of it from Oakland. The rest of it we're capturing from our HVAC, our ACs, our dehumidifiers, from the plant runoff. It all gets captured through a very cool funneling system, goes down into what we call the fertigation room. And in the fertigation room, we have multiple filters that basically clean the water down to 0. Then we remineralize the water, and then 80% of the water 100% of the water that was captured today, 80% of that water will be used tomorrow to feed the rooms. And so what we end up with is a very efficient water usage for the indoor cultivation. And we're in the drought right now, and it's we're able to kind of produce by using very minimal inputs from the outside, because the environment, the plant respirates a lot. The environment takes up a lot of that moisture, and we've made sure that in our facility build out, we're capturing all of that so we can actually reuse it and really minimize the amount of excess water that we need. So.
And it sounds like there's a reoccurring theme that not only are you saving resources and saving the planet, but you're actually, it sounds like, saving money in the long run through all these practices as well, in the cultivation process, like on the lights and on the water. So at the end of the day, you're able to pass that savings on to the customer as well.
100%. And a lot of the extracts that we use for our vape cartridges come from Legion Cultivation. And then on top of that, like I would cringe to see what the water bill would look like if we weren't reusing 80% of the water that we have, So it's like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about kind of lowering the bottom line and really, when you're doing something at scale, it's all about efficiencies, whether it's SOPs for the individuals to follow, for the actual team members to follow, or trying to figure out how you can really optimize the resources that you have, because that's kind of where you end up, building success into your business models is through extreme efficiency. So.
Mm-hmm. So that's great. I love everything that you guys are doing with the packaging, with the cultivation, but then you also have consumer education, and you have a lot of programs that you do besides just these processes that save resources. So can you guys tell us a little bit about all those really cool programs that you guys have?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, at the heart of what we do is, we wanted to use Legion for good. We wanted to use Legion to be able to give back to the planet, give back to the environment. Our 5 founders, myself included, we're huge environmentalists. We're cultivators, so we understand what it takes to work the land, and we also understand, the value that the land brings to us. So we wanted to really use Legion as a vehicle to kind of give back to the planet, and that's, you do that from a couple of different ways. You can do that with how you use your resources, and then you can also use, your profits and the sales from your products in order to help other organizations. So one thing that we implemented in 2020 was our environmental stewardship program. So, we're empowering impact with every puff, right? So we've committed to donate a portion of our sales to habitat restoration programs and projects in the state of California. It's our home state, and it's where we feel like we should be giving back the most. With that program, basically, we've teamed up with the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts. Excuse me, it's a little mouthful. They call themselves the CNRCD. What they do is they actually work. There's 96 local resource districts, and they work to help the local resource districts and provide them funding for different projects. What we do is we donate sales from our Monarch cartridge line. So we have a 0.5 gram and a full gram line for the Monarch. And with that, we're donating portions of our sales to do different programs across the state of California. We just did a really cool plant drive in Sonoma County with the Gold Ridge and the Sonoma County Resource District, where we provided plant kits that were nectar plants and milkweed plants. So residents could come, they could make donations to the local resource districts, but the funding for the plants and the funding for the drive came 100% from donations from Legion of Bloom. And they were able to kind of take those plants home and start their own Monarch gardens. And, we were able to, really help build spaces in the community that the community could really thrive with, and provide education material so they could learn how to grow those gardens, whether they wanted to add more plants or really understand what it takes to create a Monarch habitat. And so it starts small, but it's like those little things that really get people engaged. And that's a small thing. And then right now I'm working on a project with a bunch of cannabis cultivators in Salinas County who want to create Monarch habitat on their farm project. So we've got a project I'm working with the CARCD for that local resource district to try to create a pilot program to create like hedgerow type habitat for pollinators, mainly focused on the Monarch. The product line is called the Monarch. I think everyone understands that the populations of the Monarch butterfly have been dwindling for the last decade, and they're at critical levels. So, we definitely, we named the product back in 2016 after the Monarch butterfly, and we think it's the least we can do is to help save this amazing pollinator species. And, if pollinators are really important, 80% of the food that we eat is basically pollinated by some insect. So, it's a big part of just, it's a big part of the environment, the food source that we eat, the food sources that everyone eats. Without pollinators, we all wouldn't be here. So, that's something that we're really focused on with this specific product line. And then we also have an initiative that we're working with a company called One Tree Planted. So they plant trees all over the world, but we focused on California in areas and forests that have been devastated by wildfires over the years. So with the rest of our vape lines, so we have our California Sauce 1 gram, our California Sauce 0.5 gram, and then our Pax Pod lines. we're donating portions of those sales to different projects that they're putting together in the state of California. Like I said, we're working on planting trees in areas of California devastated by wildfires, and our goal is to plant 20,000 trees in the state of California in 2020, and then kind of move from there. I think these are programs that are going to be ubiquitous for the brand. These will go on as long as I'm here. We'll be doing this, and this is something that the founders are all really passionate about. So this is something we want to bake into kind of the heritage of the organization is really using some of our profits for good and giving back to the environment with the help and support of the customers. I mean, you support Legion and we support the planet. It's kind of what we like to say.
I love that. I can't wait to see in like maybe 5 years, 1 million trees planted.
Yes, yeah, it definitely starts, we start small. We're still a family owned and operated business, but at the end of the day, you have to kind of start somewhere. And I can tell you that both of our not-for-profit partners are really stoked at the level of commitment that we have to work with them and what we're willing to do to help fund their projects. I think, they've all been very excited to work with the cannabis company, which is really, really great for me. I can tell you, I spearheaded this project, and we finally kind of landed on the people we were going to work with, the organizations we were going to work with, but it definitely wasn't easy to find organizations that were willing to take money from cannabis companies. And it was kind of one of those things for me that I'm like, hey, like, I want to help you. Like, we should be able to do this. And it just took me some time to find the right fit. And I think we found it with these two organizations. And I love the work that we do. And I love the relationships that I've made with the people in these organizations. So.
Yeah, I would say that that's true too. In my work as community outreach officer for the 4 dispensaries, I found a lot of organizations that didn't want money from cannabis, whether they thought it was that they were going to lose their federal funding or they're worried about like messaging, both which are untrue but were concerns of theirs. Even groups like food banks during the COVID situation that turned away our money. So you are correct that it is hard to find these partnerships with these nonprofits that are willing to work with cannabis companies. So we have so much to give, so.
Totally. Yeah. And like I said, it's no slight to those organizations. They're really, working in NGO, like being a part of a not-for-profit, like you really rely on the donations. You rely on a lot of federal grant money. You rely on the donations from the community, and you really have to weigh the value of where your key donators are, your key supporters are coming from. So like, if you're a not-for-profit and you're thinking like, if I could take this money from this cannabis company or this cannabis organization, but I may lose, the meat and potatoes of my funding from the federal government, that's going to turn the lights off for them. So it's definitely tough. And I think what's happening in 2020 is everyone's kind of coming around to the idea that like, hey, we're here to stay. Cannabis is here. We're definitely a force for good. And, it's just a matter of time before everyone in the country has access to cannabis. So,
yeah, I completely agree. There's some really cool things that you guys are doing that you told me about. Go ahead with this slide. Then tell us about the nitro glove recycling that you guys are doing.
Yeah, too. No, totally. And I think it's like, it's about the big things, but it's also about the little things. And that's where we try to bake the little things into what we do as an organization. So then we can empower our teams to really like get behind what we're doing, because they see, from the tiniest little bit, from like just a company-wide recycling program all the way up to donating to environmental stewardship, all the way up to removing single-use plastic. It's like, it's happening from the top and the bottom of the organization, and everyone in the organization really gets involved with the process. So, lowering our environmental footprint is a choice, and doing the little things add up to create a really big difference. And so, one of the cool things I think I was able to kind of implement during the COVID time was a nitro glove recycling program at all of our facilities. So manufacturing, distribution, cultivation, during COVID, the use of nitro gloves like skyrocketed in our organization. I think it did across it doesn't matter whether you're in cannabis or not. Like if you use those gloves, whether you're in food service or in the restaurant business or anything like that, like people were just going through gloves like crazy. And I was able to kind of find an organization. We worked with TerraCycle. They're a really great partner for finding solutions to very interesting waste streams. So what they do is we collect all the gloves. They have a program where we basically ship the gloves out, and then those gloves are then freeze dried and chipped and turned into pellets. It's pelletized, and then they turn it into lifetime items. So like the playgrounds that you see at parks that look like wood, but they're made from plastic, that's usually made from nitrile. That's usually, they make that kind of material. Park benches that you'll see that look like it looks like wood, but it's made from plastic. And then also, I mean, I know everyone's probably seen decking and flooring that you see outside. All of that is basically the program that we have where we're taking our glove that's going to a manufacturer, and that's what they do with all the nitrile gloves. And we've got, I think at this point, we're capturing, I'd say 85 to 90% of the glove waste that we have as an organization. It's not a perfect system, and we have like the waste receptacles all over the facility, but every once in a while you'll still find a glove here or there that's in the wrong bin, but that's kind of like part of, you got to have a couple glove Nazis at every single location. But as far as our team is really down, and they're all behind it. And, cultivation, I will say cultivation goes through a lot of gloves. We have like a pallet full of gloves that are about to get sent out. And that's, I think 8 months worth of collecting. So, yeah. And then we also, a couple more of the little things that we do. I mean, it's small, but we use FSC certified paper and veggie ink in all of our print marketing materials that go out to our retail customers. As far as for our documentation printing, we use 100% post-consumer recycled FSC certified paper. And then, we have a company-wide recycling program, as I mentioned before. So any personal aluminum paper, glass, compost, like we have the bins around, every one of our facilities for all that material to go into. And we work, really closely with Recology, who is our waste partner that, they pick up the dumpsters out back, and we make sure that we're sorting properly, and we educate all of our team members on like, hey, what can be recycled, what can't be recycled, and really do those little things that add up. And, it's just if you don't bake it in from the ground up, it's really hard. You don't really get the value, you don't really get people engaged in the value proposition you're trying to bring. And so for me, I think I love all the projects that we've been able to put out into the universe over the last 2 or 3 years, especially like the big stuff, like removing plastic from our packaging was such a huge win for us. But like, it's seeing a company-wide recycling program take off. It's seeing adoption with the nitrile glove recycling program. It's like seeing your teams really get behind that sustainability. I think that's where you really grow culture, and that's also where they get to take that culture out into their own communities and into their own families, and really try to implement some of that same stuff and have that same mentality, moving forward. Because I think it's the education process that's really needed. I think more people would do more if they really knew, like, hey, these little, like just knowing that these little things you can do every day really add up, and like having that kind of education and knowing, hey, this is what you can recycle, this is what you can't recycle. This isn't, this is a resource for you to deal with your own waste streams. It's tough. I don't think people know enough about what is and what isn't recycled. And I think waste partners like Recology, TerraCycle, they do a really good job of trying to educate, but I think it's kind of up to everyone that considers themselves an environmentalist to kind of, without being too preachy, because it's easy to do that, but like really educate people like, hey, you can make a difference, and there's small things you can do that really add up. So we start with the little things at Legion, and then we move out from there. So
yeah. And I also love how you use your email campaign and your marketing to also include education on environmental measures that you can take. I know that I love getting the emails from you guys, and you always have a little couple tidbits about, environmental practices or something like that. So I think that's another great way that you guys use your position in the market to educate people. So I love it. Every way that you can, you guys are implementing an environmental practice. So
yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I think those are little things too. Like the most recent one we put out was all about water usage. So we highlighted what we're doing at cultivation to, recycle all of our water. And then we presented 5 easy tips that a consumer can use at home, that an individual can use at home in order to kind of reduce their water usage. And I live in Petaluma. We're under mandatory water restrictions right now. I think a lot of the state's going to be moving in that direction based on just where we are with the drought. And I know that, it's not just, individuals need to do their part, and then businesses need to really think about their resource consumption, because I think business is probably the biggest culprit for water waste. But at the end of the day, as individuals, we all can do little things to to really add value to that and conserve the resources that we have. And, hopefully we'll get ourselves out of the drought sooner than later. So,
Yeah. If people wanted to sign up for those emails that I get that I love, that always give me those tidbits from you guys, where can they sign up for those emails?
Yeah, sure. The Legion of Bloom. So the legionofbloom.com, at the footer of the website, you can sign up. There's a pop-up that'll pop up. You can sign up there. That's kind of the easiest place to sign up for that. I believe there's a link on our Facebook page. I know that if you follow us on Instagram, the Legion of Bloom CA, we're always like putting in swipe ups to different content and stuff like that. So we try to like incorporate a lot of that content into our, customer facing marketing, but the website's kind of the best place to start. And there's the blog series is nice. It talks about the different things that we do. We definitely try to be current with putting out blog posts. And I know our most recent blog post about the Monarch plant drive that we did, there's actually links to download. There's links there to sign up so you can download the planting kits, so the milkweed and the nectar plant kits. So if people are interested in building their own monarch habitat at home, you can kind of get that resource there, and then you kind of get a 2-for-1 because you'll get all of our cool email content in the future, but then you also get these PDFs that tell you what plants and how to care for them and what you need to do in order to kind of create your own monarch habitat at home. So.
That's really cool. I actually spoke at a women's garden club before the pandemic, and I happened to be at the meeting where they also had someone talking about same thing about monarch plants that were monarch friendly, and we actually all got free milkweed plants. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and one thing I want to put out there, it's like, don't just go buy milkweed. Make sure you buy some nectar plants too, because the butterflies are looking for the food source for the milkweed is the food source for the caterpillar, and then the nectar plants are the food source for the butterfly. So you definitely need to make sure you can. And the parents, the mother insect knows. They're like, oh, there's enough flowers around this milkweed to support the butterfly after it emerges. So there's all this, like, it's crazy how intelligent these species are, and they understand what they need to survive. And yeah, so, just a little tidbit there. Don't just plant milkweed. Make sure you're planting some pretty flowers to go with it too. So
that's great information. What are some other exciting things that you guys have coming down in the future from Legion that our customers can look forward to seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we just launched our new 1 gram live resin California sauce cartridge. So we're excited about that. We've had the 0.5 gram out for a while, so now we have the 1 gram. And I know, that's kind of, we launched that for set kind of right prior to 710, so we could do a pretty big marketing push with that there. As far as on the environmental tip, we're going to continue to do things that we do, continue to engage with our customers and add value to them through giving back to the planet. And, there's, I think I've been working behind the scenes. I have no idea when this is going to come to fruition, because I'm definitely waiting on my partner on this, but I'm definitely working on a cartridge recycling program. I have no idea when this is going to come out, to be honest with you. It's been a long process, but I think it's definitely needed, and it's something that we'll be working with a high-level waste recycling partner that can actually handle the waste itself. So it's not just like a box that's sitting at a retailer and you have no idea what's happening with the cartridge after that. Like, there's actually going to be a really amazing system behind turning those cartridges back into the energy grid. So there'll be an incineration process that recycles the product that they can recycle, and then everything else will get incinerated in a way that adds energy back to the grid. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. This has been I'm working on this. This has been better part of a year for a project for me, and hopefully we can get it off the ground by the end of 2021. So
that's cool. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. I think that's a great idea. Well, wow, you've shared so much information. I loved Legion of Bloom before this, and now I'm just even more impressed with all the thought that you guys put into the process and the planet. And I was really happy to learn too at the end that all of these things not only, help us save resources, better for the planet, healthier for us, but they're actually money saving. So hopefully in the end, we'll see more cannabis companies moving this way. And then hopefully one day a good percentage of them will be, paying attention to all these practices and saving resources, just like you guys.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say the cannabis industry is going to continue to grow and to continue to consume resources. So we need to be smart about the way that we spend them.
Yeah, Candace, I 100% agree. And I think, to be honest, it comes back to the customers. The customers have to really ask for it. They have to want it, and they have to support the companies that are willing to do their part to really create a, let's say, a greener cannabis industry.
Yes.
Um, it's really up to you guys out there, and we really do value the support that we get from the cannabis community, especially at all the pharmacy locations, including the Pottery, as well as Pharmacy Berkeley, Pharmacy Santa Ana, and Pharmacy Santa Barbara. Keep it up. We definitely appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I really enjoyed this conversation with you. And I also want to thank all of our viewers for being with us today for this edition of the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. I want to thank our speaker, Troy Meadows, and also the whole team at Legion of Bloom. They help make this event possible, help arrange these promos to bring you guys medicine and cannabis goods at a great cost so you can enjoy the products and support the good companies in the industry. I hope that we were able to share some information that will help you guys become better informed cannabis consumers, and that the information we shared will help you find relief. Until next time, stay well and be safe.
God bless. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you guys soon.